What conspiracy theory are you convinced that's true? I believe Edward II escaped and went to Italy. He was not laid to rest at his very public funeral. His son, Edward III, had reason to believe his father was alive, and there is some truth to the Fauci letter. Mostly I think Edward III's relations with the Pope convinced me. I also think the circumstances of the funeral arrangements were pretty suspicious. The variety of deaths Edward II was rumored to die don't exactly convince me he died at Berkeley Castle. Oh, and there's a part of Italy with an oral tradition that they once had an English king for some years. Notorious sex offender and pedophile Jimmy Savile was never brought to justice during his lifetime because he had too much dirt on other people, rumored to be high-ranking politicians, police, military staff and possibly even the royal family, that if it ever came to light it would cause a monumental scandal. He was too high-profile to be suicided, so the police were told to look the other way. Several years back, Samuel L. Jackson offered to record 300 words to the highest voted comment. The leading one was just a list of words that could be used to create a GPS traffic system, when at the last minute a rather generic paragraph where Jackson says he's retiring from acting to fight crime pulled way ahead. I'm convinced Reddit put their thumb on the scales to prevent a bootleg GPS system getting out into the wild. The U.S. government has been covering up violence against women committed by members of the Saudi royal family and other diplomatically important people for decades. The State Department knows that some American women, and girls, are abducted and assaulted each year but keeps quiet to avoid jeopardizing oil contracts. I'm only half convinced of this, but whatever. We all know the conspiracy that Courtney Love killed Kurt Cobain. My personal conspiracy theory is that this theory was either started or spread by Harvey Weinstein, due to Love warning actresses about him. No better way to discredit someone than spread the rumor they're a murderer. I have no proof or evidence for this theory, but with how Hollywood works, I really wouldn't be surprised if it was true. I think that the assassination of JFK was set up by a government agency. I couldn't tell you definitively who, but in my opinion the CIA was behind it. There's just a whole lot of shady things surrounding the whole case, and it's just really weird situation. Marilyn Monroe was assassinated. She was sleeping around with and dating many powerful men, notably JFK. You tell me she dry swallowed 50 barbiturates and the woman that worked for her was nowhere to be found, only to later resurface as an employee of the Kennedys? I don't think it's because of things she knew but to salvage the Kennedys' image. I think someone in the Ramsey family killed John Bennett, maybe an accident. Maybe someone was abusing her, etc. I believe it was the brother, and the mother and father wanted to protect him and not lose another child, so they staged the break-in and ransom note. I believe that sometimes two or more people get together and plan a crime, and then attempt to carry it out. I suspect that this has happened many times, is probably happening right this moment, and will continue to happen well into the future, but it's just a theory. Hitler didn't kill himself. The only proof we have is the word of the Soviets, a really shoddy picture, and a skull fragment which turns out to be a female skull. It doesn't make sense that all these high-ranking Nazi officials would escape, or attempt to, but that Hitler wouldn't even try. Hitler was a gambling man. He was comfortable taking risks. There are a plethora of witnesses who say they saw Hitler after the war when he was staying in Spain for a few weeks before going to South America. The FBI also spent some time looking for him following leads in Argentina. I'm from India, and we consistently see some strange decisions taken by the US government in terms of India and Pakistan diplomacy policy. Pakistan, in spite of being a US ally and heavily dependent on US for aid and military supplies, sold nuclear weapon technology to its enemies Iran, North Korea and Libya, but USA never really punished Pakistan for it. I think US/CIA knew this was happening, but they let it happen so they could artificially create enemies for the military-industrial complex, or they just wanted countries like North Korea to deteriorate. A few months before 9/11, the infantry unit I was in started putting in place anti-terrorist measures around post-ID checks, barbed wire around some things that were not even remotely related to the infantry. We were tasked with securing the local water reservoirs, air transport and railheads. If shit ever goes down, we had to learn the layout of the state governor's neighborhood for some fucking reason, and deputy governor, I think, some second-in-command state-level guy, patrols around airports, specifically runways, practicing securing planes, and some airports screening training, things that are definitely not the jobs of dumb grunts. They had us training on taking a few planes all at once with miles gear, and when we smoked almost all the passengers and crew, guys from other platoons, they didn't really correct us. Almost everything we did was considered a pass as long as we kept the planes on the ground. Again, this was special forces shit or something, not grunt shit. There was no reason we knew of that we would ever need to secure passenger planes or civilian airports on US land, anyways, and we had no idea what we were doing, just shit we were pretty sure the real guys would do, so everyone died basically lol. We also went all the way to DC and trained on securing the roads around the Supreme Court and, weirdly enough, the Library of Congress, along with an anti-aircraft missile detachment from somewhere I don't remember, possibly Alaska. They weren't a talkative bunch, but I remember it was somewhere cold, and they were definitely Army, not Air Force, and they were serious about shooting down planes. It was a religion to them. Oh yeah, we could kill that. When asked how they do against any random fast mover, all of this is to say ... 9/11 was not an inside job, it was a meticulously planned external attack by the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. That the hot dog industry and hot dog bun industry are in cahoots and purposefully make packaging that does not have an equal sausage to bun ratio. This way you always have more sausages or buns and are compelled to buy more sooner than later so you don't waste food. Kurt Cobain didn't kill himself. There was an excellent documentary called Soaked in Bleach. It's about the PI Courtney Love hired after Kurt went missing, and the P.I. thinks she did it. You heard me right, the PI he hired thinks she did it. The Vela incident was a 1979 secret undeclared nuclear weapon test performed jointly by Israel and South Africa. Interesting but limited amount of stuff out there if any care to read. Israel, of course, does or does not have any nuclear weapons, lol. That if the Western Allies had faced any more delays reaching Berlin than they already had in 1945, Stalin's next orders to the Red Army would have been to abandon the armistice with the US and UK, and continue westward to take all of continental Europe. UFOs and aliens are real and have been interacting with humanity for millennia. This implies anti-gravity, hyperluminal travel and quantum vacuum energy devices are real. I believe we have these technologies kept in black budget special access projects that will never be seen by the public due to the potential for disruption of the petrodollar war machine economy. I read the FBI files on the finders and yeah, satanic pedophile rings actually exist, and were covered up, and those kids were accused of being liars and it was all dismissed as satanic panic. They for real found those tunnels underneath that daycare and covered it up. Jimmy Savile, Epstein, Xiv, shit is real out here. Any and all conspiracy theories about the Catholic Church, specifically the Vatican, holding incontrovertible proof that Jesus was not a divine being, but a mortal human. The Templars knew it and used it as leverage to maintain their privileged position in the hierarchy of the Church and were purged by the Vatican through the proxy of the French king. The Catholic Church is probably the most corrupt organization on earth. I think there's some truth to Pizzagate, as in I think there are absolutely pedophile rings involving the rich and famous politicians that we don't know about or haven't yet uncovered. I don't think they're child-sacrificing, blood-drinking Satan worshippers though. That's a bit much. This is what I believe to be one of the biggest U.K cover-ups. Not many people know this one, but it will make you physically sick and extremely concerned about things that allegedly go on behind the curtain. Please, be aware this is very alarming stuff. I had to think twice about posting it. It is regarding an alleged satanic cult in the U.K allegedly involving police, social workers, teachers, politicians, actors, company CEOs and the elite. I use the term allegedly very lightly. I have to use it because I don't want to say the wrong thing. I will not be posting links. Everything is viewable on YouTube. If you want to research it, I warn you that it is extremely disturbing, but it is all there. Everything I mention in this post is on YouTube. It has been debunked as a hoax. Please, if you doubt its validity, do your own research and make your own decision. The BBC and U.K press have done a good job of debunking the Hampstead Heath case, West London, U.K. In 2014, U.K actor Ricky Dearman's daughter and son, 9 and 8 were staying with their mother and stepfather. Their mother allegedly caught them in their room doing sexual acts on each other. She asked what they were doing. Their response was that they learned it at school. After pressing them for more information, they allegedly explained how they had learned it at school, with Papa, Ricky Dearman, and members of staff, police, government officials, social workers, company CEOs, etc. They went on to describe detail upon detail of what had been going on. All of the following information was recorded by the mother and stepfather on camera and is available on YouTube to watch now. Like I said, it's very disturbing. View with caution. In the videos, the children detail secret doors in people's homes and in local churches and at school, which lead to satanic dungeons, stories of decapitating babies, wearing skulls around their necks, using baby skin for shoes and sordid sexual, pedophilic acts. They claimed hundreds of adults had been involved. They drew illustrations for the camera, including pictures of the adults involved and where moles, birthmarks, and tattoos of devils are on and around their private parts. There was over 10 hours of them talking in detail about what they say happened. Once the mother and stepfather had the footage, they took it to the police. Remember that high-ranking police officials were some of the accused. The children got taken from the mother and stepfather and given to the father. Allegedly, police officers with no names or identities later went to the mother's property and demanded to go in. The mother's solicitor was at the door and refused to do so. An audio recording of this is also on YouTube. A few weeks afterward, the mother and stepfather were accused of getting the children to make these stories up so that she could get custody. Ask yourself, why make up such an elaborate story? Why not just say the father was abusive? Rather than bringing over 100 people into it, the media and press broadcasted it as a hoax. No one ever spoke about it again. The stepfather has now disappeared. The mother has fled to Europe. She has uploaded a video begging that someone does something. It is one of the saddest things I have watched in my life. Also on YouTube. No one was ever arrested. There was a court hearing. Nothing happened. Case closed. I have seen a video, also on YouTube, of an ex-police chief from the same area, saying there is no doubt in his mind that the children's original statements were true. And finally, the nail in the coffin. The BBC interviewed the father Ricky Dearman, regarding the allegations. Please, watch that interview. YouTube, Ricky Dearman interview. You may not believe your eyes. That the USA and the EU are being flooded with conspiracy theories pushed by other countries, aka Russia or China, causing some people to go batshit crazy and losing trust in their government. Like COVID is fake. The vaccine was made to kill us. I believe this because the canon conspiracy is very active in some countries and causes chaos, while other countries seem unaffected. Michael Jordan's retirement in 1993 was actually a shadow suspension by the league. Jordan was in debt to some really bad people who would think nothing of forgiving his debts if he threw games or point shaved. The league had Jordan dead to rights with copies of checks to those people to cover his losses. His father was likely killed over Mike's gambling debts, so these people weren't fucking around. It eventually got to the point where they weren't going to be able to keep a lid on it anymore. The NBA was in its golden age, and Jordan was the most recognizable athlete on the planet. Outright suspending him would have caused a massive scandal that would have done irreparable damage to the league. So in order to get ahead of the story and change the narrative from his gambling, he retired for 18 months until he got his act together. He played baseball to stay in shape and have something to do. He was asked if he'd ever return to the NBA. He said that depends if David Stern lets me. Why wouldn't David Stern let Michael goddamn Jordan back into the league and immediately have a huge bump in ratings, merch, and ticket sales? Jordan knew he had to cut ties to that life before Stern let him back in. The Matrix is real, we're living in it, and the movies were just a plot by the machines to prevent the humans from freeing large numbers of people and crippling the machines. They sent some agents into the Matrix to make the movies, so that when the rebels would come and try to free people, everyone would think they were talking about the movies. Also, every time I talk about this, my life eventually gets worse due to things completely outside my control, so make of that what you will. Hitler fled to Argentina. There's some good reasons as to why I believe this as well. See, at the end of WW2 in Europe, a lot of high-command Nazi officers fled to Argentina to escape justice for the many war crimes they committed. Probably the most notable officer to flee to Argentines is Adolf Eichmann. The reason they fled to Argentina is because Argentina liked the Nazis, so they would welcome and protect them. So if Nazi high commands fled there, it would make sense that Hitler also fled there. Also, there are ruins of buildings which have the swastika on them and Nazi German coins and other items which relates to Nazi Germany. So given the fact that the Argentines protected German officers, there's buildings and many high commands went there. To me, it makes sense that Hitler flees to there. And now you're probably wondering, well, Hitler shot himself and his wife and there was a body. Yes, there was bodies, but not Hitler's. I think they were Hitler's and Eva's body doubles who loved Hitler that much that they killed themselves so Hitler could get away, because they were probably very patriotic to Nazi German and probably loved Hitler and Eva. So yeah, that's what I believe. May not be true, but until it's disproven, I'll keep believing it. Not really a conspiracy theory, but I believe in ghosts. Not a scary ghost will kill me. I believe in more of ghosts being our family members watching over us, kinda like Coco. I'm 89% sure that ghosts could exist though. The coronavirus variety that infected the world in 2019 was engineered in a lab in a certain country that plays dirty international politics. The leak might have been carelessness, a disgruntled employee, or an attempt to murder someone. The current WHO is a puppet of this country. Russia collusion is a hoax perpetrated by corrupt Democratic Party politicians along with anonymous sympathizers in the bureaucracy. It's just McCarthyite tactics taken to the level of an unconstitutional power grab away from the elected White House administration of the day. I may be dumb. Well, I am. But I genuinely believe that the political elite are pushing towards the destruction of the middle class. Lower class depends on these politicians. Upper class benefits from their purposeful tax loopholes, and donate to them. The middle class is the only class that isn't directly dependent upon them or benefiting them. With no middle class, we will also become directly dependent upon Chinese manufacturing, even more so than we are now. Tied to this, I genuinely think China will rule the world in the next few hundred years. They are actively colonizing all over the world. We owe them an insurmountable debt. Pretty sure some American professors in elite schools have already been tied to them. American men are being pussified, has a direct effect on our defense. I know, I'm dumb and need to stop watching YouTube. But still, I'm worried about it. Edit. I also think the amount of American companies showing them allegiance Disney is worrying. Their huge population is eventually gonna be a bigger revenue stream than the States, for these companies. And the only way in is through the CCP, which prevents them from speaking out against the Chinese atrocities happening around. Just worrying.